Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert with The Ted Show. I am super excited to be launching a new series with my friend. She is an expert in many things, but we're going to talk about a lot of them today. But welcome Marion Weiler back to the show. Hey Marion, how you doing?
Hi, Ted. Good to see you again.
Great to see you. Marion is with Weiler International. We've got that website scrolling across the bottom of your screen. So once you are done with the broadcast, if you want to reach out to her, that's a great way to get a hold of her. So Marion had a fantastic idea. The last time she was here, she did a phenomenal show. It was so informative and educational, and there were so many golden nuggets in that show. She's come back with a series. So we're going to do a show at least every other week, I believe, or twice a month. It's depending on how it all works out. But Leadership Corner is the name of the series. And today we're going to be talking about financial hygiene. So I love this topic. I did a little double meanings in the post that I did. Because, when people think of hygiene, they think of bathing and getting her eyebrows waxed maybe, or wearing deodorant, getting dressed. Hey, Alexa, what's up? So enough about me. Tell them just a little bit about you again, and then let's take a deep dive.
Yeah. It's financial hygiene really came to me when I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about mental hygiene. And I thought to myself, like you said, we always think about hygiene like we take a shower, we put on deodorant, but we don't really think about how we take care of the other aspects, right? How do we take care of our mind? How do we take care of our finances? And finances is a big topic. It can be a good topic, it can be a not so good topic, but in this part of the Leadership Corner, I was intrigued by that idea, and so I'm thrilled to be talking about that.
All right, so let's tell them a little bit about Weiler International.
Yeah. So I founded Weiler International, and I'm advising executive teams and business owners, stabilizing really particularly right now their business and their finances, but taking it a step further, business planning and optimizing your business operations, and marketing is a big component of that as well, which is my previous life. I was a senior executive at a global real estate firm. So my clients are particularly in real estate, in construction, and a lot of the agents, most of them are independent contractors. So they're all running their own businesses. Of course, you can take that further. And the bigger the company gets, the more complex usually the finances get in the business operations. But I'm here to help and advise, with the business and making sure you're coming out on the other side of what's happening right now.
Which is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about right now, because I think that's what's on everybody's mind. People are struggling. Small businesses are struggling. People have been furloughed or let go. Businesses have closed. Nobody knows what it's going to look like whenever we do reopen, and how many phases that's going to be. There's so much unknown. So part of the financial part, I think, is that people don't know what to do. Do I hold on to my money? Bury it under the pillow or in the mattress? Do I invest in something now? Do I talk about real estate maybe if I have a little bit? Do I refinance? There's so many things that people don't know what to do, and they're kind of in this paralysis mode. So can you talk a little bit about that, especially knowing that there's this fear of the unknown going on out there?
Yeah, and I think that brings up a really good point. You can't deal with something until you know what your particular reality looks like, right? And just and that's where the hygiene comes in, having certain practices in place help that. And I want to take you back like just a step here into where the whole financial management started for me. And that was really when I was a girl, watching my parents do their banking, right? So the money that my mom would pull out her little checkbook, and she would write down the money that came in, all the expenses that came out, until that next time when money came in again. And then determining to see what is left was the deciding factor whether or not some money could be transferred over for a rainy fund, right? So, and that really set the tone for me to understand I have to get an idea of what my financial situation looks like, because it's very different for everybody, right? There's no general rule to say you have to do this, you have to do that, because every individual situation, particularly now, looks different. Right? Some have savings, some don't. Some are furloughed, some have 80% of pay. Some, that their main business fell off entirely. So I want to talk a little bit about that in my next steps and what I found is working very well. So for me, particularly, the juggling my own finances didn't start until I was studying. And at the time,
go ahead.
I was studying in Germany, and at the time I decided I wanted to study in the US. There was that little challenge though, which is Germany education is pretty much free, and in the US that is not. So I had to figure out a way to come up with income so I could actually survive and pay for my tuition, pay for my school. So what I did, and that was my individual plan, was I decided to get 3 jobs while I was still studying, and I was saving up money. I started a year early, so I would have enough. I calculated it all out. How much do I need to graduate? And how much do I anticipate? Research goes into that as well, right? How much do you anticipate you need for cost of living and things like that? But I managed to literally graduate before I ran out of money. Because as an international student, you're not allowed to have a job. So I knew I had to save up enough money to make that happen. And that goes more into the planning phase, which I'll talk in a little bit. But the lessons that I learned is it is very good to have a budget and really understanding what's coming in and out. And that's more relevant right now. And sometimes we don't like to face that reality and say, this is what's coming in, and maybe there's not as much coming in anymore. And that's a scary thought. But at the same time, when you know what the reality looks like, that's usually, for me, when the anxiety somewhat decreases, and I now know what I'm dealing with, and then I can start looking for solutions. So the other lesson that I learned is it's really not what comes in as it is as much what's left, right? And I find that with myself, and I find that with clients that I'm working with, that sometimes they don't have that clear understanding of what's coming in, what's coming out. And again, it's especially as an independent contractor, that changes, right? So you kind of have to plan for the worst case. You have to plan for the best case. But if you know what that worst case scenario looks like, then you can start coming up with suggestions.
Let's talk about the worst case scenario, because I think people are experiencing that right now. Yeah. So if you, I had a lot of questions, obviously, when I began promoting this week for the show. Mm-hmm. And the resounding question had to do with, okay, I'm really messed up right now. I didn't budget before. I now have a clear sense of what's not coming in. Mm-hmm. And I really, really now know what has to go out. So where can people start if they're in the midst of this? Because it can be overwhelming, right, Marion? Mm-hmm. If you haven't done it and all of a sudden your income is stopped, and that $1,200 that you may or may not have gotten from the stimulus check, you don't know what to do with that, or to hold on to it, or how to budget it. What are some of the steps people can do to begin the hygiene process? Yeah.
The first step is really writing down what is going out, right? If, say, to your point, nothing is coming in anymore, right? What is going out? And when you're in that phase of fear is a really bad financial advisor. You kind of have to get your mindset into this, okay, I'm tackling this now. And then starting to write things down and taking inventory, right? So for example, what are some adjustments that you can make? Make priorities, set priorities, see what expenses affect your business in a positive way, which expenses might not affect it or minimally affect it. So depending if you are an independent contractor, just one agent, or you're a company or you're a broker owner, you have a team, again, it's more complex that way. But you could look at the initiatives, campaigns, the marketing that you've been doing. How, and I just want to say a side note, now is not the time to stop marketing, but marketing has to be done differently.
Say that again, because that is such an important point.
I have people ask me, should I stop with my marketing? No. You don't want to stop with your marketing, but you want to do it perhaps differently, right? So if you say, for example, you have a campaign, you have initiatives. I still see a lot of the print initiatives going on. Is that really the most effective way to go about it? And, marketing is also picking up the phone, calling your clients, your past clients, and genuinely asking them, how are they doing? What are they dealing with? Because what you build up now will help you in the future. So it's not the time to stop marketing. But again, maybe there are digital ways to do that. And I'll get into that. But let's focus on the expenses first. So a number of companies or mortgage or within the banking or vendors or companies are offering some kind of relief, right? So take a look. What do you have? What can you refinance? What can you renegotiate? What do you have in place? Maybe you bought something that was driven by ego. And I think we all, to some extent are guilty of that. I have made that mistake before too, where I felt I had this great income and I can, now do this. And especially sometimes in real estate where it seems that those that drive the big cars and have the nice jewelry and the clothes and the designer clothes, they've made it, right? So at times we kind of buy into this, even though that might not be our value. But take a really close look at how much of that is happening in your life, where maybe your ego is in the driver's seat.
Very much so.
What is important to you? Say for example, you pay for convenience things, right? You go to the store and you just don't like to cut up your fruit. You buy it in a certain way. So those are all expenses.
I'm guilty.
Right? I mean, here we're talking about crisis mode, right? You have more income coming in. So how are you feeding your family or yourself, right? Then perhaps you need to look at those options, maybe the stores you've been buying, or not the stores you should be buying in the future. But looking at this bigger, say there's still something happening, or you are running a team, or you're running a brokerage, then take a look at what can you refinance, what can you negotiate if you have a couple offices that you run. Can you renegotiate the rent? Can you what are the initiatives that you have, the campaigns going on? Have they actually had an impact on your business? Have they been successfully managed, or have they been something that was a great idea, but it hasn't been embraced? So those are the things. And then, of course, what can you get out of, right? You can't get out of everything, but perhaps there are certain things that are not as important right now that you can halt or pause: subscriptions, memberships, things of that nature.
Subscriptions especially, I feel like, are some of the things that can be done. I mean, that, yes, we all, like right now, we're all, most of us have watched Netflix or Hulu or something like that. But you really do have to kind of evaluate, go through. That's why what you said earlier really is such a key. You really have to look at what's going out, all of it, down to the nitty-gritty penny in your checkbook, your debit account. You can't just rely on the ATM to tell you what your balance is anymore. You really have to take a look very deeply at what, like, I just had a bill come up, a subscription for something. I mean, I kept it because I'm a music guy. It was important to me. I'm not furloughed, but I'm giving it as an example. It's $9.99 a month. Well, you know what? There's free services. I don't have to pay the $9.99 a month. $9.99 a month adds up if there are 3, 4, 5, 6 of those, and we all have them. And so really taking a look at everything that goes out, like you said, is so critical.
Yeah. And there are so many premium memberships to things too, right? And you have to decide though for yourself if, you know, one of the tools or the systems or the platforms really bring you in business, keep you connected, then maybe that is a premium membership that you can keep unless, of course, you have no more income and you're really struggling, you have no savings, then a membership is not something necessarily to keep, right? Unless it brings in business. So, you know, or I've had somebody say the other day, should I pay down my credit card? And that person was in a situation that you described, no more money coming in and barely any savings. No, right now is there not the time to pay the credit card if you don't know how to put food on the table, right? Those are some things that you have to look at in each particular case to say, what are the priorities? Obviously, you don't want to necessarily cut it down to nothing. You need to think about how can you get more business in, right? And that's the next step. Once you figure out what are your expenses, and what does that reality for you look like, then you can start thinking about solutions and really looking at your revenue and your services that you offer. How can you offer your services in a different way that would be relevant now, right? You see the virtual closings, you see real estate agents really going into the video, and sometimes it takes a moment to just to get over yourself and like show up.
Curbside pickup for restaurants that never did curbside pickup. Right. They had to think outside the box, and delivery can be expensive for them. And some of them even came up with their own delivery. Like that's what you're talking about, really thinking, okay, how can I deliver my services, so to speak, in a different way?
I've seen fitness studios that are renting out their equipment and sending it to people home, and they actually had to buy more equipment because there was so much demand. Right. So thinking outside of the box, and it's often very easy to fall into that victim mode. And we have great reason for that. The only problem with that is it never gets you to the other side. It never leads to anything positive. And so while the pity party can happen for a moment for yourself, and perhaps you just need that at that moment, but then it's important, I believe, to get to the other side and say, okay, how can I take control of this? What can I do in the best of my abilities, thinking outside the box, that I can get through this time, build relationships, get away the focus from the transaction, which is easier said than done, because of course you're thinking about the transaction. You're wondering where that next paycheck is coming from, and the next check for whatever house you're selling. But if you have that transactional mindset, you are not thinking of the relationship, and the relationship right now is key, because that will be the future referral business. Those will be the people that remember you, and that remember you rising up and showing up for, and caring for what's going on. And sometimes when we start shifting our focus away from ourselves to somebody else, it actually helps us as well. It makes you feel better than if you're constantly in your own head.
I love the relationship part. I want to give you kind of a scenario, and I think it's what you're talking about. People are so used to passive marketing, meaning throwing out the mailers or doing the newsletter that everybody and their brother gets, and so the calls for a lot of people are a new thing. They're not used to incorporating that into their touch, their relationship, and it's been a difficult thing. But what you said earlier is so important. It's free, guys. It's your time, and you have time, trust me. And then the people will remember you. I have had many people check on me just from a business perspective and say, hey, just checking on you. Didn't mention anything about, hey, how about that client or anything, just that relationship part. I'll never forget them. Absolutely never forget them.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to get out of your own head and focus in, really truly focusing in on the other person without that script that's running in the background of like, how can I turn this into business, right? And that's the faith that putting this in up front and being there for other people and putting people first, and we briefly talked about that last time, really builds. And you see a lot of the really successful real estate agents, they've built tremendous relationships with their clients. They have more referral business than they can handle. And that all comes back to that. And so I think really focusing in on that, but you brought up the point of calling, right? I think sometimes people don't know what to say. They, you know, you don't want to be tone deaf. You want to say the right thing at this moment, but then the question is, what is the right thing? And in my experience, it's really being authentically caring about the other person. Perhaps it's as simple as, how are you?
Right.
Right. And meaning it and being, you know, at the point of receiving what is coming back and maybe giving advice or seeing how you can be of service to others.
That's the thing. I think people are overcomplicating it. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And for a lot of the younger people, and I say younger, anybody's younger than I am, but younger people, they don't necessarily have the phone calls aren't big for them. Social media messaging is. Yeah. It's the same thing. So if you don't have someone's phone number, don't use that as an excuse not to reach out. I send personal messages to people all the time. They're not copy and paste. You can reach out to people. You need to build up your database if you don't have their phone number, but that's for another show. But you could still reach out to them. It's still a personal touch. Hey, Marion, how you doing? How is the company going? Is there anything I can do to help you? It's very simple, guys. Don't make it complex.
Yeah. And if you're not up for that actual live phone call because you might get stumbling over what to say, write them a note. When did you get your last note? I know I have them all hanging here. They're few compared to how many emails and text messages I'm getting, but I'm keeping them. I am remembering those people. So then you have a little bit more time to think about what you want to say, and you're more thoughtful about your words coming on the paper. And
I had a friend drop off, a close friend drop off because I do business with her, and it had nothing to do with business, but it's this morning, actually, this cute bag. It's got a margarita in it, which, you know, I mean, there's the weight of my heart right there. And just a miss seeing you. It didn't say anything about her business. It didn't say anything about, hey, do you have any deals for me? It said nothing. All it was a drop off on my doorstep, just letting me know that she was thinking of me. So if you don't want to make the phone calls, like Marion said, write a note and put some, it's simple. What probably $10 or less for that bag, and I'm probably overpricing it. The booze was probably most of that. So if you don't want to do booze, I had somebody drop a plant off. I had somebody drop, you can do things that are creative. Stop thinking about having to spend the money the way that you did prior to quarantine, and think all the positive ways you can do stuff at a very much cheaper, inexpensive rate.
That's right. And so coming back to the expenses, once you figure out what you can maybe pause, halt, or throw out altogether, then thinking about how can you offer your service remotely, digitally, online, how, you know, what can you come up with? Also think about the partners that you have. Maybe you are not, you know, the social media guru. Maybe you have something to offer them where you can exchange, because likely they're in a similar situation. You have a knowledge that they don't have, and they have one that you don't have. So perhaps you can find some partners, or if you're a real estate agent, your brokerage very likely has some solutions that they, and perhaps that is now the moment to dive into those and see how they might work for you, or how you can pivot in this time. And pivot seems to be the word of COVID.
Well, that's the buzzword, isn't it? Pivot. But it's a good word, right? It's descriptive. It's what we're all doing.
But then you're starting to be in control, because now you're thinking out of the box, and just that mental shift that happens when you feel I am a victim and I don't even want to look at what my financial situation looks like because I'm so paralyzed, that nothing good comes of that. No, really having that courage and facing that reality, and then taking steps to see what you can do to change that, or just get over this hump of, that we are in now, and hopefully, things will pick up slowly again, and perhaps you're even on a better foot when you come out of it, because you were forced into changing and adjusting the ways you do things.
All right, so how do I already put it down there, but we might have to have a second financial hygiene show, mainly because this is such a moving target. Depending on how things, the executive orders all start to end tomorrow and Sunday, and so we're all kind of anticipating how that's going to look. But we will continue to be doing these awesome shows with Marion Leadership Corner. I think financial hygiene was the perfect choice on your part for the first one, because it is obviously on everybody's mind. So how do they reach? What's the best way for them to reach you?
The best way is there is a free 30-minute consultation on my website, weilerinternational.com, or you can email me, marion@weilerinternational.com. I'm obviously on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. And I was thinking about putting together a workshop on that topic. So if that is of interest to anyone here, please direct message me, and we can see how we can make that happen.
I love it. All right. You're amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. I even got some reminders. Sometimes even those of us who are in it still have to be reminded. We have to be reminded of the things that we can do.
We all do.
We all do. All right. You're awesome. Thank you so much, Marion.
Thank
you guys
Ted.
will be back later on. Reach out to Marion. She's an amazing resource for pretty much any kind of question you want to ask about financial hygiene, and certainly on the Leadership Corner side. So thanks, guys. We'll be back later on today. Bye,
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much.